Welcome everyone to today's First Friday webinar. My name is Michelle Pacansky-Brock, and I have the fun job of being faculty mentor for digital innovation for CVC OEI. Get to connect with lots of very courageous educators and talented educators. And today we have three here with us, Inger Stark and Chelsea Cohen, and our special guest, Kevin Kelly, who's joining in also. I'm gonna pass the mic over to you three. We'll start with Inger and Chelsea and then go over to Kevin, but I find that it's much more interesting just to have our guests introduce themselves. So why don't you just say a quick hello and let everybody know where you're chiming in from.
Hi, my name is Inger Stark, and as the slide says, I am a sociology instructor at Laney College, and I'm in my second year of serving as the district's DE coordinator for the Peralta Community College District, which is here in Oakland.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Cohen. I am the DE coordinator at Laney College, and I also teach English to speakers of other languages, ESOL.
And I'm Kevin Kelly. I teach at San Francisco State University and work as a consultant with different campuses, including the Peralta Community College District. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. Karen, you can go ahead and stop sharing your screen now. Thank you so much. We have a fabulous webinar here today. We're going to learn all about inclusivity and equity by digging into some of the amazing work that Inger and Chelsea and Kevin have done together. They've put together an incredible resource that we're sharing with you here today. And I am going to actually put the link to the Peralta Equity Rubric in the chat right now, so you all have access to it. And this session today is going to be interactive. We want you to open up this resource on your computer or the device that you're viewing on so that you can reference it during today's presentation. And we're going to coordinate the Q&A in such a way that you are welcome to ask questions during the presentation. I'm just going to loop back to what Karen said in case you didn't hear her during the housekeeping. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Wiggle your mouse around right now to find that. You can click that and open it up, and that's where you're going to type your questions. So questions for Inger, Chelsea, and Kevin go in the Q&A box. Use the chat just to share reflections and ask questions well, share reflections and interact with your peers. Questions for Inger, Chelsea, and Kevin go in the Q&A box. So that's about it for me. I'm going to pass things over to Inger and Chelsea to get things started.
Okay, here we go. So first share and then hit present. And
looks good.
Okay, I'll start. As we said, Chelsea and I work at the Peralta Community College District in Oakland, California. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you maybe 10 minutes of background about how the equity rubric came into being and what we're doing with it. And then Chelsea is our sort of resident expert in working with instructors on applying the rubric in their designing learning activities. So she's going to talk for a while about that. So about 2 years, well, actually, first we were going to do an activity. There, oh yeah, what is equity? Okay, so in all of we've given this presentation or similar presentations a few times, and one of the things that we've realized is that the word equity means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And before we launched our initiative about trying to think about equity in our district, one of the things we did was have a conversation and think about what does equity mean, how does it become a guiding goal to us. And so what we'd like to prompt you to do is to write really quickly, just briefly in a sentence or something, define equity. And part of the reason we wanted to ask you to do that is you guys will be able to see what do other instructors mean it means to them in their classes or at their district or whatever. And whatever initiative that you have at your district or you want to launch, one of the first things to do is to try to build some sort of consensus about what equity means to you and to your college and district.
So I'm seeing having a level playing field, fairness. Oh, we have lots of comments.
Yeah. So the short version of where we landed as a district was that we wanted to focus on the outcomes of our students. That what equity meant to us was more aligned outcomes. The state's outcomes are, we often measure at the state level retention and success. We actually also decided to look, although we're not doing it completely yet, but at grade distribution, because grade distribution, once students succeed and pass a class, grade distribution dramatically impacts the trajectory of their education. So what happened is, at our district, we have a district-wide distance education committee that has representatives from all of the colleges and from the district offices. And a couple of years ago, we decided that with the sort of growth around distance ed, that we wanted to build our initiatives here at the district based on two things. The first was that we really wanted to have quality online in teaching and not just throw a lot of courses online, which was happening. But we really wanted to support instructors to become quality online teachers, and we wanted our students to be able to have what they need and really quality online learning experiences. The other thing, and this is the important issue, is that we really believe that we, within our district, sorry, I'm not used to the slide thing. So I had a sabbatical about 2.5 years ago, and I focused my sabbatical on the outcomes of students in our district. And what I've given you is what is up here is a slide that shows that passing rates for the entire student population in our district in face-to-face classes is 68%. These data are from last spring, 2018. And that the passing rate in our online, 100% online classes is 3 percentage points lower. Now, I understand that that's actually a reasonably good disparity, given some colleges have an even greater disparity. But what's equally important to us is that the long-standing achievement gaps in terms of passing courses for the disproportionately impacted student populations is even worse. So like if you look at one of our colleges, the Pacific Islander student population only passes face-to-face classes at 6 percentage points less than the entire student population. But if you look to the right, in the online classes, that goes down to 54%. At another one of our colleges at BCC, African American and Black students pass the face-to-face classes at much lower rates than the general student population, and it goes down in an online. So what we did was, as a district, is we made a commitment that we don't want to grow our online programs and our distance education program until we instituted something to try to mitigate these achievement gaps. We actually had conversations around our sort of ethical commitment to our students, and that if our administrators are just throwing classes online and this is continuing to happen, we have sort of an ethical shortcoming. You want to add anything?
Nope.
Nope. So what happened was we decided about 1.5 years ago, and this story I'm telling you kind of coincides with our transition from our old LMS Moodle to Canvas. And we saw that transition as an opportunity to try to institute things that would support our teachers to do really excellent online teaching and to support our students to succeed. So what we did was we built a course that was around to support teachers to become, learn what they needed to know to do really great online teaching. And we based it on the OEI, the CVC OEI rubric. And we built a module into that class that was specifically about equity. And it focused on showing the data, like I just showed you, across the state, talking about why those achievement gaps happen. And we built an assignment into that course that requires instructors to kind of take stock of what kinds of things they could do in their course. We originally built a rubric for that assignment, and then we got the idea that that rubric could be expanded to be used to assess an entire course, all right? So the rubric was built to complement and be used in conjunction with the OEI rubric. And we learned yesterday, we used F. You'll see on the rubric, we have F1 through 8. We used F because at the time we designed it, the OEI rubric went up to E. We're gonna change that now since the OEI rubric is down to D, and will be E, which Michelle pointed out yesterday is nice because E stands for equity. And Kevin Kelly, our co-presenter, who I will ask to say something briefly, he helped us design it, and we wanted to build the rubric based on research. So I have great ideas that I think work with my students, other teachers have great ideas, but we really wanted the rubric to be based on research that demonstrates with evidence that certain types of interventions actually close these achievement gaps. As I said before, the committee really wanted to build tools and resources for teachers to use and other staff and administrators, not just talk about equity and talk about pedagogy, but to build something that they could have on their desk, in their hands, or online when they're building their learning activities. So we wanted to, make it something that we could really institutionalize. And it also came after we sort of designed it that we realized that the rubric, actually, the way we've designed it, could be used to all aspects of students. So when you're talking about images and representation and creating inclusivity, that matters from the moment a student touches an institution all the way up to the moment they leave it. So when they go to the website to learn about a college, when they go through an online orientation, when they're going through the enrollment process, when they're trying to find an online course, when they're trying to find tutoring, that the rubric actually isn't just about pedagogy. That's what we're going to focus on today. But that the criteria in the rubric really, if an institution is really working hard, could be applied to every aspect of the student. What were you going to say?
Let's look at the criteria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we came up with are these criteria. And Kev, are you willing to weigh in a little bit on the research that you based them on and how we came up with these?
Always. So yeah, when we looked at the OEI rubric and saw that there were many criteria related to quality and accessibility, we felt that there were still some topics that could be covered that would help instructors make their course more equitable. And so I did do a dive into the research on what, when I looked at the word equity in the dictionary, it talked about freedom from bias. And so in what ways can we as online instructors be biased? Some of them related to, as you can see in F3, image and representation bias, how different genders or different orientations or different ethnicities or different educational backgrounds might be represented in either textbooks or pictures or other media. Human interaction bias relates to how instructors and students relate to each other in the online environment and so on. So we came up with criteria that would address some of those forms of bias as well as some forms of access or support. And so I'll hand it back to Ingra and Chelsea to go into more detail.
So what I hope you have is either access on your computer or a copy in front of you of the actual rubric. You'll see that it has 3 columns for each of these criteria. And what we did is come up with examples, and we're really thoughtful about the language. What would have to happen for you to align an online course with F1 or F5 or F6, and what would we want to get all the way to exemplary? And so our dream here at our college is that we have the opportunity to work with all of our online instructors. And as an aside, actually, this rubric is completely relevant for any instructor, even those who teach face-to-face. Anybody who uses any internet-based digital material, this rubric would apply to them. But our dream is that we have the opportunity to work with all of our online instructors to try to rebuild, revise, and reformulate courses to meet this criteria. So,
and also to have this criteria be adopted by the OEI course design rubric. We'd love for some of this language to actually be required for courses to align. So to really have a stronger focus on equity in this course design rubric that so many of us are using to assess and get our courses into the OEI consortium.
Just as a note, Chelsea is a what do you call it? A formal trained OEI reviewer. Yeah. So she has a lot of experience with reviewing courses with the OEI rubric. So, okay.
Ready for the interactive part,
I know, I want to give you the good
everybody?
part. This is the good part.
All right, so I'm going to actually share some concrete strategies with on how to apply this rubric to your class. So as I'm really interested in pedagogy, I wanted to know what exactly can I do? I have a few examples. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to share the equity issue and then a strategy an instructor used in her course to address that issue. And then I'll ask you to comment on which criteria you think this aligns with. Is everybody ready? Do you have the rubric handy? Okay, so the issue is that educational resources often have stereotypical and harmful imagery. This can appear on websites, our institutional websites. You'll see there's a slide this from Quest, from our online learning orientation. There's textbook imagery here. So I'm going to share what one instructor did to combat this. In her class, she chose, this is actually Inger's activity.
I can't believe you just said that. You're not supposed to tell that.
I want to share. So Inger, in her class, she had a
Wait, time out. How do I forward the slide for the next piece?
Let's see. That's okay. Oh,
there
we go.
Okay. Sorry.
So in her class, she had a textbook. It was a sociology class, and she found the information in the book to be really useful. However, she noticed that the imagery really didn't represent her student population. So she brought this up with her students, and she told them it made her feel really uncomfortable. And then she facilitated a dialogue in her class around stereotypes, image representation, and how the students might have experienced this in their education and in other areas of their life outside of the classroom, and also talk about the effects it might have on them. After that, she then encouraged the students to reach out to the publisher and share with them why inclusivity matters in their materials, and also provide some suggestions on how to improve the imagery. So that's the example. Michelle, do you want to send the poll out? If you could all look at the rubric and see if you can find some of the criteria that align. You can choose 1 or 2 or 3, I think, and we'll see what you come
So yeah,
up
the question
with.
is in the example where, I can't believe you told everybody it was me. I created assignments for my students about the poor and harmful representations in the book. Do you think that activity aligns with which of these on the rubric?
Okay, so we have folks responding now. Let's give them a little bit more time. Okay, we have
some people in the chat too.
Can you see it? Can you see it right now, Inger and Chelsea?
We could just see it as a poll to vote, not the results.
Okay, so we have about 55 people have responded so far. So how about we give you folks 10 more seconds just so we can keep moving forward.
I see F3 exemplary. Somebody mentioned in the chat.
Great. Okay, I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2.
Yeah, someone. Na, 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 na.
Okay, here we go. I just ended the poll and I will now share the results so you can reflect on them. So what do you see there? You want to talk about what you see?
Interesting. Okay, so we see couple said technology access, F1. Many said, 63% said F2, diversity and inclusion. 86% said images and representation, which we agree probably is the strongest example here. Human interaction bias, 40%, and 20% said F5, content meaning.
Talk about how the idea is to come up with activities that hit.
Yeah. So when we originally presented these ideas, we meant to have them align with just one criteria, but then we realized they really do align with lots of different areas of the rubric, which means that it's really a really high impact exercise. And so yes, we do feel it does align with all those things that you mentioned. And why this promotes equity is that with this activity, Inger really created a safe space for those who might feel invisible in her course, those who maybe have been underrepresented in different areas of their lives. So she wanted her students to know they're acknowledged and they're valued, and for the students who were represented she wanted them to notice how others are excluded. So it really did benefit everybody.
P.S. The publisher responded to all those letters and actually worked to improve the quality of the imagery in the textbook. It was great.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, ready for
Before
the
we
next one,
leave it-
everybody? Jeopardy.
Before we leave this topic, one quick add-on is that those of you in the audience who are not teaching online courses but might be supporting students and as a student services professional or technology support staff member, you can use these same concepts to build websites that are more inclusive and equitable, representing the students at your institution and so on. And so we encourage you to think about how you can use this rubric even if you're not teaching an online course.
We can go forward and backward.
Okay, let's have Kev do this one.
Okay. Kev, since you were already talking, why don't you talk about this one?
Sounds great. So another technique that we use in online courses, I teach a fully online class with over 100 students, and the research out of Stanford shows that the majority, 94% of the faculty who were part of a study, when they were in an online discussion, they responded earliest and most often to names that looked like white male names. And so that type of bias seemed like something that I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing in my own class, especially with 100 students. So I started the practice of creating a Google spreadsheet where I would mark every time that I responded to an individual student, so that way I could make sure they were getting equal amounts of attention and feedback, and also making sure that they were getting it frequently, not waiting till the end of the semester to respond to them. If any of you are teaching a hybrid or face-to-face class, you can follow this same strategy, because the research shows that classroom teaching has similar challenges with respect to bias and in terms of calling on students and responding to them. You can use a stack of index cards with the students' names on them and call students in the order they're drawn off the top of the pile.
So I'm wondering if we should have people just respond in the chat. Maybe that's faster. Maybe you can all type in the chat what you think this activity that Kevin just mentioned aligns with the rubric.
Yeah, let's go on, because we want to show you. We don't have time to show you the next two also.
So type in the chat which criteria aligns. Let's see. F4. F4. Is it aligned or exemplary? What do you all think?
Yeah, is using that a spreadsheet to track an instructor response to mitigate bias, and or the cards aligned or exemplary? Aligned.
Some people are saying aligned, and I'm wondering why you think it's aligned. Oh, okay, exemplary. Aligned, not exemplary. For those of you who say aligned, why? Some people are saying they randomize.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone want to share about their feedback on why it's aligned as opposed to exemplary?
What would you have to do to make it exemplary? So how could you take using, structuring your response and move it from aligned to exemplary? What could you do with your students?
Get students involved, somebody just mentioned.
Yeah. You could have a conversation about why you are structuring your own response. You could talk about the research, right, that shows that there is bias. You could have them talk about how they feel when they see bias and don't have an opportunity to address it.
Exactly. And yes, open up a discussion with them about how to mitigate bias in the class. Maybe students are unaware of their own biases as well. So these are all good ideas. I'm just checking what's coming on.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going, because you got a big one here.
Okay, so next one, student alienation from course content. That was the equity issue, and I'm going to share a Google Maps introduction activity, which is an icebreaker that my colleague Anna Cortesio developed. So this is what she does. At the beginning of the semester, she creates a class map, and she asks her students to locate their hometowns on this Google map and place a pin or a marker where they're from, and share something special or unique or something they want the class to know, and also add a picture or a video. And some of them add multiple pictures, Some of them can upload videos. After that, she has them take a little tour of the world map and then comment in a discussion in Canvas about what they notice. What do they have in common with their fellow classmates? What do they want to know more about? What are they curious to hear about? So this, we feel, is a very powerful icebreaker that aligns with our rubric. So let's ask you all where you think it aligns. Which criteria?
Let's poll on this one, Michelle, because this is a good one.
Okay, here we go.
Do the poll.
So which of the criteria on the rubric do you believe this well, people are chatting too.
Chat, poll, both are okay. F1, I see. Technology.
And you would actually definitely, if you're going to do this, it may take some additional tech support to your students.
Yeah, I actually should mention that she also provides a video, a screencast of how to post with captions and detailed instructions.
How many folks do we have in the poll, Michelle?
F6.
Yeah.
So we've got about 40% of people who have responded so far.
Let's go, because we want to show you one more before we run out of time.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. I always feel bad cutting people off, but here we go. Let's take a look at the results.
Okay. Ooh, okay.
Excellent.
Nice. Can everybody see this, by the way, the poll results?
It's a good idea to paraphrase.
Okay, so we have F1, technology access, 33%. F2 is the strongest, which is what we initially thought too. Diversity and inclusion at 82%. Images and representation, F3, 46%. F4, human interaction bias, 42%. And F5, content meaning, 28%.
Yeah, this is a great activity. And as we had people say at one of our presentations, yeah, well, she teaches ESOL, so it works in with her content. And we're like, no, you could do this in math. You could do this in chemistry. You could ask your students to tag where they're from or where they've been or someplace they want to go and talk about how it connects to math or what they know about science in that particular place. So it's totally could be done in any type of a course.
And I just can I add real quick that I just put the link to Chelsea's great blog post on the @one blog. I put that link in the chat, and if you click that, you're going to see a video of Chelsea walking you through this. So it's a great way to kind of refresh and also share it with your colleagues.
And isn't there,
Chelsea,
don't you have a colleague who picked this up and they reformulated it and they're presenting it?
Oh yeah, Liz, right?
Liz Duplessis is going to be sharing it at Digital Learning Day, and she's also writing a follow-up blog post about it as well. So it's spreading like crazy, which is wonderful.
Awesome, yeah. And I just want to just complete this with saying this is really powerful because it creates connections between students at the onset of the course. It shows that their unique lived experiences are valued and they become a part of the course content, which we feel is really, really powerful and poignant. All right, let's
How are we doing on time, Michelle?
That is a great question. It is 11:33. We have a hard stop at 11:45 to get it ready for.
Oh no, we're good. We'll go through this one and then we have time for questions. Okay.
Yeah, we do have some questions coming in too.
Okay, so here is the last example that we're going to share with you, and the equity issue was one-way instruction. Can you explain that?
Well, I talk about one-way instruction as just shorthand for in a classroom environment. That would be when the instructor stands in front and the students are all staring at you and you do sort of a lecturing method. In an online environment, obviously, one-way instruction is what we call correspondence teaching, which is you give students information and then you just basically test them on that information and more telling them, here's info, now just tell me back what you learned. And obviously that doesn't work in a face-to-face classroom super well always, and it really doesn't work in an online environment.
Right. So I'm going to share an activity that our colleague Alicia Caballero Christensen developed. And what she did in her film analysis class was have her students take the film home and get together with a group of friends, family, or community members, watch the film together, and then facilitate a discussion around the important themes or questions that came up with the film. Then they had to document it. So you'll see in this picture here that the student, she's next to the TV, is leading a conversation with her friends. and they're really into it. And as Alicia said, after they documented it, they then sent it to her and then posted it in the class. So she said the students take pictures, videos, or recordings of their presentations and write about it. I literally have 35 videos, pictures, recordings of families, friends, roommates coming together, debating concepts in the film. So we're curious.
Will you throw the poll up for this one too, Michelle? This is a fun one too. So
Yeah.
again, which of the rubric, look at the rubric and then tell us which one do you think it connects to. And in the chat, if you want, tell us if you think it is aligned or exemplary.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, an aside story, I was thinking this last night. When I was at UC Davis in the mid-'80s, we watched a movie called Broadcast News, which, by the way, still happens to be one of my favorite movies. But the assignment, even back then in a face-to-face environment, was to get into groups and dialogue about it. And I remember those dialogues more than I originally even sort of remembered the movie. So you could do this about anything, right? You could do it about a reading assignment in the textbook. You could do it about almost anything, but it just so takes the learning activity and puts it in the worlds of the students.
Right.
What are they saying? Oh, F5 exemplary.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
F5 exemplary.
Okay, so how about we do 5 more seconds? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and poll.
The other thing about that quote from Alicia, who's our colleague, is she sent us that video at 3 in the morning or something, and she was like, oh my gosh, the light bulb has gone off. When you reformulate your pedagogy around these kinds of things to try to foster equity and inclusivity, teaching just totally becomes transformed. And she was so excited. She sent us that quote in an email going, you guys, I get it. It's so amazing. Okay. So what do we have? Oh, interesting.
Technology access, 47%. Diversity and inclusion, 54%. Images and representation, definitely, 42%. Human interaction bias, 37%.
Right.
Content meaning, 78%. So
they all tagged them all. This is a winner exercise, right?
Okay, I'm just looking a little bit at the chat too to see what we have.
Mostly exemplary.
Mostly exemplary. Yeah, so initially I thought this was a great example of F5 content meaning because it's really allowing the students to connect the course content to their own backgrounds and involve their families and friends and their perspectives, and then weave that into the classroom. It's also really relevant to their lives, right? Because they're making those connections between their lives and the course.
And by the way, wouldn't you rather respond to an assignment where they do this than when they do a regular sort of structured film analysis? It becomes so alive, right?
And also the students, as you see in this picture, which is a great example, they are then portrayed as experts in the course. So that is, images and representation, right? That is a really powerful way to get your students involved in the creation of the course content.
So that was wonderful. I love seeing this creative teaching and learning ideas. Folks, if you have questions for the panelists, please put them in the Q&A box. And we have about 7 minutes left. So do you think this is a good time to transition over to questions, folks?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from Sylvia who is asking if you've ever used Name Coach. Does it help you feel more comfortable saying the student's name either when face-to-face or giving video feedback? If you haven't used it, do you think this will help faculty improve in this area? And before you answer, I'm going to put a shout out for our 12 o'clock webinar, which is about using Name Coach for student services, providing cultivating inclusivity in student services. So I'll put the link for that in the chat while you're responding to that question.
So first of all, Chelsea and I have been sort of begging, pushing, and pleading with our district to get Name Coach for our entire district. We've got some financial constraints right now. We don't have it. We wish we had it. I think it's an unbelievably valuable tool for all of those of you who are on. I would stay to learn about it if you don't already know, because I think it is kind of not an extra. I think it's almost the baseline of what's necessary for an institution with a diverse student population to be able to Yeah, it's really important. I mean, I still sit in front of a computer and I Google, how do I pronounce these names properly? And I work really hard, right? Because who wants to spend their whole life having their teachers mispronounce their names?
My first assignment in I use Flipgrid to have the students introduce themselves. So I have them state their name, how they pronounce it, and their preferred pronouns, also where they're from, a little, tidbit about who they are. And so that helps me a lot with the pronunciation until we have name coach here.
Yeah. It also is an institution. Having name coach essentially would say, as an institution, like in Chelsea's class, her students know she cares about it. In mine, they know. But if you have name coach, the entire institution then is saying to its students, everybody, we actually care. We really care. So, okay, what's our next question?
So you have a nice invitation from Amy to do a keynote for a conference. So I'm going to let you just share your emails in the chat and she can follow up with you directly that way. We've also had several requests for the link for your slides. So if you want to give that to me, we can put it on the website. If you have the link available, you can put it in the chat right now. That's another great idea. And actually, why don't you stop screen sharing now so we can see our faces a little bit better. It's a little bit more friendly to have the questions coming this way. So Amy is asking if this session is being recorded. It absolutely is being recorded. The recording will be available on our First Friday website next week. And I'm going to put that link in the chat.
Let me see if I can put the link in the chat.
A link to the rubric too.
And let's see. And Bridget is looking for a link to the rubric. If maybe Kevin could put that in the chat, that would be great. Hold on, I'm getting there.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so TL is asking if we can have the links emailed to us. What I'm going to do is there's a website. It's the same website that you went to register for this event. And that's where the archive goes. And I'm going to also add links to that website, our web page. Okay, folks. So if you just visit this web page, this is, again, the web page that you registered on. I will add the resources there. It's really simple to do that after the event. And then you'll have the resources along with the archive next week. Okay. Suzanne is asking a question. We've got 3 minutes left. In the index card activity, how is it not an example of stereotyping if you assume a certain background based on what you think their name sounds like?
So to me, and my background is in sociology, is that stereotyping is a perception associated usually with negativity. What we're talking about is responding to research. And so obviously in our brains, we make assumptions that isn't necessarily stereotyping, but assumptions that certain names are representative of different cultures or backgrounds or even race, right? What people look like. So what we're suggesting is that knowing that we all make those assumptions, that you create structure and activity to make sure that your assumptions don't play out in a negative way. Does that make sense? So yeah, you could say if you hear the name Bob, I think it's a white man. If I hear the name Letitia, I might in my mind, rightly or wrongly, think it's a woman of color. But the point isn't so much whether my assumptions are accurate, it's to create an activity to make sure that my assumptions don't play out in my responses to students and therefore harm them in the incidents that people have different, yeah. Is that good?
Yes. Could you two would you be willing to share your email address in the chat? Because it's about time to wrap up. Okay. And I think that there are still a few more questions. And if anybody has just a burning desire to reach out and ask a question to Chelsea or Inger directly, then
do you know what? Do you want me to? No, that's okay. I was going to say have it send it to me. You're so overloaded right now, but yeah. Send us questions. Just remember, like you, it's the beginning of our semester and we're buried. So
yes, we understand. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. There are so many great resources shared. And I know that I can tell from the questions and the desire to learn more and apply more that we are all very grateful for the collaborative work that you've done there at the Peralta Community College District. And especially, which gives me goosebumps, is your willingness to share everything openly with the Creative Commons license and allow all that goodness to spread all over the place.
Can I just say one more thing, Michelle, that I always say and I forgot to say? 1 minute. You're looking at 3 white people right now, and I just wanted to make a comment that we have worked really hard actually to create a very diverse community in our distance education program and our team, and that it just so happens today we're the 3 who are presenting, but there are 2 other people who were integral in the development. Kevin did a lot of the original setup, but Sujana Tumu, who is our admin for Canvas and our LMS, and Alex Hernandez, who runs our help desk, were integral decision makers. It was not just the 3 of us. A lot of people gave us feedback.
And you have froze on my end.
And so I just wanted to make sure that while you're presenting today.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, things are getting choppy, but I think everybody got that last part, which was very important. So thank you for ending on that note. We have to wrap up, folks, so that our next webinar can get started. Thank you so much for being here. Kevin, thank you for being our guest. Thank you to our captioner, Inger and Chelsea, and to Karen for helping out with the housekeeping. So have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.